Deal or no deal?
French class by itself is already a pretty bad thing. No one likes it. It's boring, it's hard, it's embarrassing, presentations. People don't like presentations, don't like public speaking, especially when you have to do another language. So yeah, I have 8 classes in my schedule. French is my 8th favorite class. It's just bad. It's bad enough already. But even still, this year in particular, they have managed to be worse than French usually is. And that's really hard to accomplish. So I would congratulate them on that, but I just can't. So anyways, this year I had quite the experiences with some bad French teachers plural, and I'll talk about that later. Anyway, my first teacher, for the sake of the video, we'll call him Mr. Jesus T. And this guy, he was bigly weird. He was an old guy, glasses, very tall, but not tall like a basketball player. He was more horizontally tall, if you know what I'm trying to say. And if you saw him around the halls, kind of looked like a really angry guy, kind of a mean teacher. And he was always a Spanish teacher, but for some reason this year he was teaching French. So at the start of the year, there were 25 students in the class, regular-sized classroom. Very quickly, it became a not regular-sized classroom, because Mr. Jesus T, he was not a good teacher by any means. He didn't follow any of the orthodox methods employed by real French teachers, didn't bother using the same French teaching program as the real French teachers. He kind of did his own thing, which was bad. For one, he would just throw tons of his homemade crosswords at us. The guy loved crosswords, so he just put French words on a crossword and gave it to us to do. Somehow he was still able to screw it up, because with almost every single crossword, there was one box too many in one area or one box too short. And I don't even know how you managed to do that. He was using a crossword generator, and so that kind of pissed people off. What else pissed people off? Lots of things. For one, Mr. Jesus T gave us some stupid translation quizzes, and we didn't translate stuff from the English to French word, no. Instead, he made us look at images, and we had to translate it into French from that. So, a picture of someone kicking a cigarette becomes arrête de fumer, meaning to stop to smoking, or with a proper translation, stop smoking. On one of these quizzes, one person was caught cheating, and so Mr. Jesus T comes by and says, "Hey, that's a sick bird." And he's just kind of grinning to himself. He's like, "Aha, do you know what a sick bird is? It's an ill eagle." That was another thing. Mr. Jesus T made these stupid jokes all the time. At the end of class, when we had nothing to do because he's never organized and rarely plans stuff for us to work on, he goes, "Hey, do you guys want to hear a joke?" A man walks into a bar. He says, "Ouch, that's a real knee slapper. Do you understand the joke?" It's because the man walks into an actual bar, like an iron bar at a construction site or something. And at first you think I'm talking about a bar as a nightclub, you see? And exactly like that, he'd go through the trouble of explaining the whole joke. So if the joke had any comedic value to begin with, it was all but lost by that point. So outside all of that, really it was just an extremely boring class. I mean, the activities he would give us made no sense at all. He probably made them up on the spot. Like, one of them, he made us all wave our arms in different directions to represent which way the accent on each letter goes. And so people transferred out of the class because it was terrible. And not just a few people. At first, it was like 3 or 4 people. Pretty normal. But as weeks passed, we were down to like a dozen people. From 25 at the start of the year, so we had like half the class down. And now at this point, we have just about reached the pinnacle of worthlessness. There are like 9 people left in the class, but really it's more like 8 because there's at least one person skipping class each day. So the class has devolved into its purest, most dismal form. Mr. Jesus T didn't even really bother hiding how unqualified of a teacher he was at this point. To demonstrate what I mean, in November we were having a drill for a code black, which is basically someone dangerous in the school. You have to lock the door, close windows, turn off lights, be quiet, and hide. At the very start of the class, the code black announcement comes on, and we're sitting in Mr. Jesus T's class. What does he do? Nothing. He continues to sit at his desk on a computer, and the lights are on, and the door is open, and the window is open, everyone's sitting in their desks that window open. So, I guess Mr. Jesus T's brain registers the code black announcement after about 2 minutes. So finally, he gets up and shuts the door. Wow, a miracle. And he just continues sitting at his computer. But then he reaches into his bag a moment later and pulls out a Nutella sandwich. And so he just starts eating that while walking around the classroom doing not much at all. And then he just decides, pulls out his projector up at the front of the class and does attendance out loud. He goes, Jane? Is Jane here today? Someone tells him Jane transferred out of the class a few weeks ago. So Mr. Jesus T just kind of stops. It's really sad. He kind of like soaks in the depression for a while. And finally he's like grumbling, Don't tell me things if I didn't ask for it. And everyone's looking around at each other like, This guy's just a complete hooligan. And he continues the attendance. All of a sudden, there's a knock on the door, and all the time we're told, if there's a code black, never open the door. And what does Mr. Jesus T do? He opens it. And it's the police standing there, because they check up on the school during the code black. So he and the police are just kind of standing there. The police say, do you know you're not supposed to open the door when we have a code black? And Mr. Jesus T is just like, oh. And he closes the door. And that was it. I think he got in a lot of trouble for that. That was so pathetic. Everyone was like dying of laughter. And so yeah, Mr. Jesus T, he just has a ton of ridiculous stories like that. One time he had whipped cream on the tip of his nose all day. No one bothered to tell him. One time he was scratching his face with the end of his red pen. But the pen was open, so he had red pen marks all over his face that day. And no one even told him. And there's some pictures of Mr. Jesus T just lying on the floor of his class. Because, I guess that's how we demonstrated to people the French word for lying down. And one time, he just started making pig noises for 30 seconds straight. Because he was trying to show us what a nasal sound is like. You understand the nasal sounds, don't you? Like, fin or ah. It's a nasal sound. And then one time when we had French first thing in the morning, the bell rang. Mr. Jesus T didn't even bother unlocking his door for 15 minutes. Because he, forgot he had us as his class. We expected that to be the norm for the whole rest of the year, basically. Just, Mr. Jesus T fumbling around, pulling more trash, and us sinking further into the realm of physical pain. That's really sad. But, one day, without any warning or announcement, Mr. Jesus T wasn't our teacher. Instead, we had Mr. Dance. We didn't actually know his name was Mr. Dance at the time. In fact, we didn't know his name was Mr. Dance until we didn't have him as a teacher anymore, because he never even bothered telling us his name. The whole time we had him as a teacher, we just called him Come On You Guys, and you'll find out about that later. We also didn't know why Mr. Dance was there and not Mr. Jesus T. We found out later that Mr. Jesus T was on us, quote-unquote, stress leave. Probably meaning Mr. Jesus T was leaving because he was stressing out his students. Most of the time, a substitute teacher was a welcome change in Mr. Jesus T's class, because no one very much appreciated Mr. Jesus T. But the thing about Mr. Dance is that he might have been worse than Mr. Jesus T, if you can believe that. Because while Mr. Jesus T was boring and didn't teach us much except for crosswords, Mr. Dance was boring and taught us a lot of hard stuff that made no sense at all. First class he showed up, we kind of appreciated him, you know? It was actually a big deal to learn something for once, but very quickly we unappreciated him. Because he was just so enthusiastic about education, which sounds like a good thing, except Mr. Dan's enthusiasm translated into, come on you guys, you should have learned this stuff last year! How do you not know this? This is review, you guys, come on! Jeez, you guys! But because after a good 3 months of crosswords and not much else with Mr. Jesus T, we are pretty behind in our French knowledge. So Mr. Dance realized this, dug up these 50-year-old racist French textbooks, and had us grinding really hard on a bunch of lame worksheets all the time. Also, he had snot running down his nose in the second class we had him. Okay, but back on topic. At first, we were all going pretty try-hard mode, listening well, doing work, participating. In fact, when you try hard like that, it does make the class less boring than it actually is, I find. But you cannot try hard your way out of boredom forever, especially when you're working real tough and you're getting like 4 out of 12 on the quizzes. I saw those marks and I was like, haha, that's terrible! But because this guy was a substitute, I figured the marks wouldn't carry over to when we had an actual teacher, or they wouldn't count for as much. So because I was getting terrible marks anyways, I just stopped trying, and so did my friend Thomas. Instead, we focused our efforts in passing the time and paying attention to Mr. Dan's favorite catchphrases. So here's the thing, no matter what it is, Mr. Dance seems to find pleasure in being disappointed with us. Whenever we suck at French, which is often, it's just, come on you guys, you should have learned this last year, you should have learned this in grade 8, jeez you guys, come on, get to work, get busy. And you would just kind of repeat the same phrases over and over whenever he wanted to lecture or scold us. So Thomas and I, every class from then on, just started recording on a piece of paper how many times Mr. Dance would use each of his catchphrases for that one class. So this is what an average class looked like. Come on you guys, 7 times. Jeez you guys, 3 times. You should have learned this before, 5 times. Get to work, get busy, 6 times. Ah, Jesus, 2 times. What? 6 times. You know, 31 times. And right, 97 times. Probably none of you guys would understand this on the codes alone, and that was the point. We didn't want Mr. Dance knowing what we were writing down if he saw our paper. Though even if it wasn't coded, he might have never found out just because he wasn't aware of what he was saying himself. And it was just every class, we stopped caring, we stopped working hard, we just dedicated our time to listening to Mr. Dance go through the exact same phrases. And yeah, one class, he said right 97 times. There's 80 minutes in one class, he said right about 1.2 times every minute. I think that's a world record. Every time Mr. Dance used one of his phrases, Thomas and I would just look at each other and start laughing really loud because we didn't care about that class anymore. We were pretty much done with everything. So Mr. Dance would come over and be like, what's so funny? What are you giggling about? This is serious business, you know. And then we'd add another tick to the the you-know section. And so there are more great moments like that in the class. One time Mr. Dance was talking about cardinal numbers, like first, second, and third for 1, 2, and 3, and I asked, isn't cardinal a bird? And he puts on the same exasperated expression he always does when he looks like he's just done with the class, and he goes, yes, a cardinal's a bird, well, this is numbers now, this is English now, come on, you guys. One time someone was knocking on the door to enter the classroom, they realize it's unlocked, and so they just walk in. Well, Mr. Dance, he's just having none of it. He gets up from his desk and goes, why are you knocking on the door? It's always open, there's no need to knock. Geez, you guys, I told you this last class, didn't I? Everyone's looking around at each other like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Usually people get pissed off when they don't knock, so Mr. Dance, you're just on another level. Really great person. One time I just got so sick and bored of the class, I started flailing around in my seat, waving my arms around, and while Mr. Dance was going around handing something out. And then when Mr. Dance was walking behind me, I hit him in the elbow really hard with my head because I was just flailing around, and he just jumps back like 1,500 feet into the air. He's like, whoa, control yourself! One time we were asked something about name one item you have in your bedroom, one item you don't have in your bedroom, and I could only think of the word for only one thing that was in my bedroom, which was the floor. So Mr. Dance comes around to me, and I'm like, je ai un plancher, mais je n'ai pas un plancher. And he just squints real hard at me. He's like, what? You have a floor, but you don't have a floor? That's ridiculous. That makes no logical sense. And so I say, yeah, but I don't know any other words for things in my bedroom. And he's like, what about a bed? Only? You don't have a bed in your bedroom? And I say, isn't only a reading? And then he gets real exasperated again, starts waving his arms around in the air and walking in circles. He's like, yes, Lee means to read, but it also means a bed. Geez, you guys, didn't you learn this stuff in grade 8? So Thomas and I look at each other, add another tick to the geez, you guys category, and start laughing like maniacs again. Finally, Mr. Dance has had enough with our shenanigans. He storms over to us, draws a big black line through our paper, and says, stop playing these games. But Thomas and I, we're just looking at each other in amazement, because he never found out the paper was about him the whole time. He just drew the line through it and never even found out. And the whole time, everyone's just giggling because the whole class is ridiculous. There's like only 9 people in the room, including the teacher, because someone's skipping again. We're all just drowning in the realm of physical pain. It's just a dismal experience. So everybody does a terrible job with this bedroom thing. Mr. Dance is just fed up at this point. He goes on this gigantic tantrum, jumping up and down, running around in circles. It looked like he wanted to cry right then. And we're all just sitting there half exploding on the inside because we're trying not to laugh. He goes, you guys have to take responsibility for your education. You have to get up off your backsides and do some work. And he kicks a chair. He's like, geez, you guys, come on, you guys. And then someone knocks on the door. He opens it, and it's John, the guy who's always skipping because the class sucks. So Mr. Dance says, you're 40 minutes late, you wait out there, and comes back around to finish his tantrum. He's going crazy, and it's like 5 minutes later, he goes to check outside for John, and all we hear is, where did that boy go? And then we're all dying because this is the worst time of our lives, but it's also funny as hell, and I'm dead because I'm not alive anymore. It's just a bad time. And so we had to just sit in the class ourselves, dying of laughter, while Mr. Dance found John sitting in the library because he was also done with everything. Moral of the story, don't take French class. It's a hilarious time for sure, but it's only hilarious because it's really sad. And it's really not worth it. So, my French year, pretty much over. Mr. Dance left in late January, and we got an actually good teacher now. Thing is, though, actually just the Friday before I put out this video, I saw Mr. Dance in the hallways, and he saw me and just made this weird smile at me. What I think it is, I think it's a trauma or stress-induced flashback. All the other kids in my French class saw him too. We had no clue why he was there. So this is what French does to your brain, guys. Don't do it. Thanks for having money, everybody. Good luck with your cash.
In the blood, for the storm.